Well, shifting over to an article that you had found this week, Jonathan, we talk a lot about what AI means for everyday people, but we actually got to see an article that talks a little bit and gave a study on what some everyday people think about AI. So tell us a little bit about the article you found.
Yeah, again, the article will be linked in the show notes, but this is from TheVerge.com, and it was they pulled 2,000 people, which is not an enormous sample, but it's relevant, and asked them about AI. And there's some pretty interesting things here. 57% of people have heard of ChatGPT, but let's just stop for a second. That's just under 60%. So that's a pretty fat group there that has never even heard of ChatGPT, and then it just drops incredibly as you come down through that. So 46% Bing Chat, 45% for My AI from Snap, 38% from Bard from Google, and then Midjourney Stable Diffusion, which anybody who's studying AI right now, you're hearing those names a lot. You're looking at a quarter or less of the population has even heard of them. And so we're not talking about, uses them. We're talking about even as heard of these things are. So there is a large swath of the population that still is not paying any attention to AI overall. In fact, it's dominated by millennials. 36 million millennials are paying attention and using AI. 35 million Gen Z, and then of course it falls off pretty dramatically for Gen X and Boomers. And so, but what is interesting is that when asked, will these technologies have a big impact on society? AI is ranking 74%. That's far above almost anything else, including electric cars. And so I think that those juxtapositions are pretty interesting to pay attention to. You have a population that generally sees this as being a bigger deal than electric vehicles, probably the biggest technological change that's happened in a while. And yet you have very little interaction with the main players in the space right now. And that interaction is almost entirely at the younger generation. So two things. If you're in the older generation, this is probably a big change and it's worth paying attention to. If you're in the younger generation, this is still a frontier. And I don't know how much longer it'll be a frontier, but you still have a lot of opportunity to be an early mover and early player in this. And, we know from technological changes in the past that early players tend to have disproportionate awards. Just kind of on a grand kind of scale here in terms of, career advice or preparation. And when I say, I don't mean like you should go be an AI technician. I mean just being able to use AI in any field. So this is interesting in that, yes, there was rewards for people that were programming the internet back in the late 90s. There were bigger rewards in some cases for the people who figured out how to use the internet in whatever job they were doing. So the first realtors that started listing their stuff online, the first colleges that got an online website, the first brick and mortar stores that started selling online, the first newspapers that started printing articles online. Like all of those places had some significant advantages to being early adopters and kind of getting up ahead of the game. Now you can say the same thing on YouTube. I mean, lots of people listen to us will be familiar with Dude Perfect. Dude Perfect, there's lots of trick shot people out there right now. Dude Perfect dominates them all in a way that is just, it's not even a competition. That's because they got in early. And so the early adopters, they didn't invent video production. They didn't invent YouTube. Instead, they did something using the platform that nobody else had done and got rewarded for it in a really big way. So no matter what field you're in, being able to start to understand how AI will impact your field has some really big early return advantages. David, anything from this survey that caught your eye?
Yeah, I honestly thought that the section that was most interesting to me was the part that was talking about how people thought AI would impact their work and whether they thought that AI would make their work better or worse, and basically whether AI would be able to do a better job than they would at certain tasks. And what's surprising is that the numbers for almost every task that was submitted in these questions is that about 50% of people said that, yeah, I think that AI could do a better job and do my work better in this particular area than I could, as opposed to worse. And so I thought that's really interesting because I would be very curious to hear a bit more of a follow-up on what they mean by better or worse, because there's a lot that goes into the quality of work like this, rather than just how good is it, how bad is it, because and when it comes to just generating something, just generating a thing that is passable, I think AI is extremely good at that, especially with the large language models like ChatGPT right now, is that they are very, very good at generating something that at least at a surface level glance looks human enough in nature that could pass as decent enough. But I think that if you take any sort of hard look at pretty much any of the work that a human will do versus what an AI will do for most of these things, I think you'll find that a human with enough time will be able to do leaps and bounds better than them. So that was kind of the thing I found most interesting.
Yeah, there's an interesting sociological trend there. I think maybe the part that I find disturbing is at what point did people cede their ability to do work? Right. I mean, like you would almost hope for a bit of a stubbornness there that says, no, I can do my job better than some stupid robot. And so I wonder how much of that is an awe for AI, which is possible, or a lack of connection to their work. And the reason I'd say that is that I think if you split this poll and you divided it and asked people who are passionate about their work to answer, and then people who are not passionate about their work, I suspect it would be very different. I don't know. They didn't do this in the poll, but I would be really curious to see what that would do. I suspect the people that are passionate about their work would pretty strongly dispute this idea that AI could do better than they did. So I wonder how much of this is people sort of despairingly say AI could do better, or maybe if it's a hopeful thing, maybe it's AI could do this, and that's because any dumb person could do this, and I don't really want to do this anymore. There might be something
sure,
there.
Yeah.
So there's another piece in here that there's an awful lot of support for laws and regulations, and so the internet was considered the Wild West for a while, and it probably lasted for a pretty long time, where it was very lightly regulated or not at all, and some of that's changed now. I suspect the time for AI will be much shorter. I suspect that there will be actually pretty fast legislative action. So you're going to see a lot of tightening of regulations and laws and stuff like that around AI pretty quickly here.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching through this clip of the Alternative Ideas podcast. If you'd like to see other clips just like this one, or the full episodes where we have discussions just like this, you can check all of them out on the channel.